I want to talk about the control room, because your design team and you were getting guidance from Elon Musk's SpaceX. And I wanted to know, what was that collaboration like, and what did you learn from your experience with them?
Yes, it was great. I couldn't talk with Elon, unfortunately. I wish I could have. But we had the chance to go, thanks to Greg Daniels and Howard Fine and their connections. We had access to the inside of SpaceX, and we could go and do a guided tour. So it was really fantastic. Honestly, I was completely ignorant about it, if not about the fact that they build something that goes to space and Teslas. That's all I knew.
Yeah.
And then I walked in there and I found out so much about this company that I had zero clue about. And it's very interesting. First of all, obviously, like for us, it was always something to look at with these knowledge that SpaceX is a privately owned company and Space Force, it's a government branch. So to keep that in the back of your head at all time. But when it comes to...
Well, how does that affect the design?
Well, it affects it because a privately owned company means that they have way more money and they can do pretty much whatever they want.
Yep.
I think that is a government branch. You have way more guidelines and way smaller of a budget. So you look at it and you just keep that in the back of your head. But it was very interesting to learn what they do, how they do it. And the crazy part is that I had no idea. This space is this massive hangar until your eyes can see. And every department works together. There's no real separation among departments. So when you walk in, on your left, you have this open area cafeteria with like a buffet and tables. Yeah. And on the right, you have this glass cube, which is the launch room. And and then you look in front of you and you have SpaceX. So you have from engineers, scientists, painters, they all work in their sections in this open air space next to each other. And everyone can watch the launches because it's made of glass. So every single person that works there, when there is a launch, they just peek through the glass and look at the launch. And the launch room itself is such a simple room. There are like IKEA desks with one simple computer in it, very cheap looking chairs. And then there is this large white wall with projection. So it's not even a screen, and they use projectors and they project whatever it's happening. And so that for us just opened up so many different ideas, and we picked what we could use for us. So Greg really liked the idea of being a space that everyone that worked there had access to, at least with their eyes. So I used the concept of using glass walls a lot. So the room is not completely glass, but there is it's concrete and glass walls so that people could have that access to it. And we couldn't use the projection because of lighting issues. It wouldn't have worked well because obviously a set is not a real place. And so you have to have certain lights for the actors. And so it wouldn't have worked out well. So we needed to go for a screen, and then we had to land for this amazing LED screen surrounded by other monitors. So this was a real screen, like there's no CGI there. That wall was massive, and it's completely covered by this LED lust technology type of LED screen. It was really impressive. And but yeah, so we just learned the things. And so what I've learned and applied to the show was the interior of the rockets. So when they go to the moon, which just happened in the real world, the technologies of these rockets is completely different from what at least my brain collected over years of movies and whatever else that talked about spacemen going to the moon.
Yeah.
So you have these iconic image of the astronauts in these cockpits that are tiny and covered everywhere by buttons and levels and such. And now the technology has evolved so much from the 60s to today. And so all you need is really one large screen that looks like a large iPad. And that's pretty much all they have.
Wow.
And the space, like technology in SpaceX is very functional. And also they are very conscious of the environment and they recycle a lot. Pretty much one of the things that SpaceX does, they go after the launches where the bigger pieces of the rockets detach and they fall on Earth, whether it's in an ocean, in a lake, in a desert. They go and pick those pieces up so they can refurbish and reuse the materials for the next one. So there is, and the spaces inside is very much functional to what the purpose is not to be cool or to be filmed in or anything like that. So we tried to do that. Like I used very basic elements of design, but I wanted to emphasize the fact that today you don't have those cockpits with a million buttons. You have pilot seats and a large screen. And we added like a few elements just to make it a bit more cinematic again. But that was the direction. We didn't go in the old school vision. So I don't know if everyone is going to appreciate or they think that we were lacking on things. That was always my fear, that maybe it was going to be seen like, what is this empty little space?
Yeah, because that's tricky. It's like you want to be realistic, but at the same time, if nobody really understands what the realism is, then it almost seems like you're under-designing and you're under-propping. So how do you balance that? I mean, I think like you, I mean, I agree with you. The way I would envision this is the same you said you did, and I think a lot of your audience would too. They're envisioning kind of this old 1960s rocket ship. And that's knowing that that's not what it is and having to be realistic, but also give people something that they would understand. It's got to be tricky.
Yeah, you got to risk it sometimes. And there is, again, the teamwork effort to discuss these things beforehand and see what could have worked and what didn't. And we all agree that even the rocket that we built, the interior, we had the two different environments. We have the living quarters, which is where they polish the guns and where they get the guns. And so we had tables where they can have their food and the bathroom and the plants. So we added a lot of texture, and I kept some of the elements of our collective memory of what a rocket that goes to the moon looks like.
Yeah.
So I tried to, everywhere the camera would be spinning around, to have texture in the background. But the cockpit, which is the most technological part of all, I decided to go full in for minimalism and just keep it as realistic as we could. So I broke the white and the gray with just these handles bars, which are really everywhere. Because when there is absence of gravity, the astronauts use these handles, which are spread around the space to just move around the spacecraft. And then the large monitor, and we just set up the round, like we just landed on the round design. And so everything was up in circles, but that was it. So you kind of make a choice, and then you hope that the audience will appreciate, and you just go with it.